You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, a UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carl Stebbings and Matt Smith.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 101.
101. How did that even happen? How did that happen?
Of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and this week I'm in Matt's conservatory studio.
I know.
In the warm this week.
I know. It's lovely and warm. In fact, actually, we've had to take layers of clothing off. It's warm.
I came here this evening in jumpers, and I'm down to a t-shirt now because it's very warm in here. And Mother Smith has cooked us a wonderful tea, so I'm very full indeed. It's very nice.
As are we all, yes. No, that's all good. Yeah.
But no, I hope you all enjoyed our 100th episode last week that we done from the Norwich Aviation Museum. Me and Matt had a fantastic time
there. Yeah.
That was so great, and what an achievement to try, to get on board the Vulcan. It's definitely one in the tick list for me.
Definitely, yeah. And ironically, believe it or not, the streaming that we did from there is actually more reliable there, sitting in the middle of a field, than it is here in the conservatory studio. So apologies if you are watching on YouTube live. We are having a couple of minor issues with regard to stream quality here, but fingers crossed it will hold out long enough to keep us going.
So we've got quite a few people in the chat room today, and
filling up nicely.
It's filling up nicely there in the chat room. Yeah, we've got quite a few people. We've got Marsha's in there, and we've got Mila is in the chat room.
Excellent.
Tony S is in the chat room. Captain Al is in the chat room.
Yeah.
And we have gone scrolling down here. Micah is in, the main man. Micah.
Yeah.
He's in the chat room as well. I don't think I missed anyone else.
No, I think we're there. Yes.
Mash has just put in the chat room. She's put that's a lot of eggs behind me. Yes, there is a lot of eggs here.
I should just stress that Mother is actually she bakes. She does lots of baking.
She made us a cake.
She did make us a cake. Obviously, that's where the cake came from for the 100th show. So she does everything from sausage rolls to I don't know what. So you can imagine with all that pastry and things, she goes through an awful lot of eggs very, very quickly. So yes, absolutely. But normally, apart from when we're in here, it's actually the coolest place in the house. You see, because we don't normally have the heating on in here unless we're in the studio. But anyway, and nobody really cares about that. I don't know why I'm going on. It's all part of the fun.
So we've got lots of news stories, but we have also this episode got a very special guest.
We have
on the line.
Yes, absolutely.
All the way from Yellowknife in Canada, where it's currently in the minus of the 30s at the moment. So welcome onto the show, Keith.
Thanks.
It's so cold. 32 degrees. Minus 32. How do you cope with that? Seriously.
It's a dry cold. That's what they always say. If you it's not windy, and if you wear lots of puffy clothing, it's fine.
Right.
So Keith is a pilot over there and in Canada, and he flies some of those really sort of very treacherousy type landings and stuff over there with the ice on the runways and stuff. So he flies away. He flies some really awesome aircraft, but we're going to get into that later on in the show.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned. We've got lots of news, like I said. We've got also some Patreon we're going to kick off with in a moment.
Yes, we'll do that in a sec.
We've got some bit of military news and
no pilot Pip this week.
No pilot Pip this week. We've given Pip a week, a day off.
Yes,
from sending us his segment in. He's had a busy week this week. Bless him, Pip has.
Yeah.
But we have also, like I said, we have got a great guest on the show, we're going to have some interesting stories later.
Can't wait. As I say, and actually, this is one of the opportunities, whether you're watching it live or whether you get to watch it on catch up, as we call it here, we do have some fantastic videos to share with you as well. So if you do get a chance, I know most of you listen to this using the old podcast. Wherever you get it from, whether it be Libsyn or wherever, or iTunes or wherever. But no, it is worth, if you go to www.youtube.com/plaintalkinguk, you'll actually be able to watch our output now. We do, as I say, do it live every week on YouTube.
And you've got a making of video.
I do, from our 100th.
We have a making of video from our 100th show, which Matt has put together this week and edited together.
Pip's just joined us in the chat room. He says,
Pip.
he says, thank you for the time off. Yeah,
that's okay, Pip. Yeah, no worries. But no, we have got a making of video for last
yep.
week's show, which is pretty
Yep.
good. I've had a good look at that, and Matt's done a fantastic job of editing that together.
I'm very surprised he's not watching the rugby. I've got to be honest.
I know.
I'm not going to lie.
He's bored of it.
He's not bored of the rugby. You can't get bored of the rugby. Honestly. Anyway, should we kick off?
Yes, we have. We're going to start. Well, we have got a Patreon, a new Patreon this week.
Very exciting. Brace yourself. Here comes the cheesy music, everyone. No, that was an aeroplane. Oh yes. Brace
yeah.
If we're really spoiled, he might even sing. I hope not.
I'm not. No.
He can't.
Oh, we go.
Can't get the effings to.
I'm not gonna sing tonight.
You're lying.
I know. No, I'm not. But no, we have got a new Patreon of the show.
Have.
And for those of you listening and those of you who know, we have a Patreon fund. And this gives
the Earl Grey
Fund. The Earl Grey Fund. It fills us up with Earl Grey during the breaks.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we do have a new Patreon.
It also paid for most of last week's live episode in the middle of a field.
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did pay for the broadband.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wireless broadband. Yeah. But no, we have got a new Patreon who has very generously donated via the Patreon fund from our website. So thank you to York Mola. I hope I pronounced your surname right. But York Mola, he has donated via the Patreon fund. So thank you ever so much to you and to everyone who's donated via Patreon to the show. We really do appreciate your donations, and they do make a heck of a difference to the costs that we incur doing the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we love doing anyway.
We do.
So it's good. Yeah. So thanks to you guys, and thanks to you, York, for your generous donation. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? But we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Yes, I'm ready. Yes.
Let's go.
Hi, sorry.
So, kicking off this week's first news story then, on the Independent website, and the headline, British Airways removes plane from service after finding bed bugs on board.
Oh dear.
Yes, I said
That's horrible.
Bed bugs. So, the airline has confirmed this week to the Independent that the aircraft was taken briefly out of circulation. And they actually confirmed that they did find bed bugs on board the aircraft.
That's really horrible.
The airline said that the plane was taken out of circulation after reports in The Sun that an infested plane was allowed to keep flying. The Sun said that a row had been closed on a 747 flying from US to Heathrow after bed bugs had been spotted on board. BA said that it would never allow a plane to continue to fly if it knew there was an issue. And a spokesperson from the Independent said whenever a report of bed bugs is received, they have to launch a thorough investigation and, if appropriate, remove the aircraft from service and use specialist teams to treat it. The presence of bed bugs is a real issue faced normally by hotels, well, obviously hotel rooms. But BA that operate more than 280,000 flights every year, and these reports of bed bugs are extremely rare. Nevertheless, they have to be vigilant about the issues and continually monitor the aircraft. There are no official statistics of bed bugs on aeroplanes, but a referral site for extermination services called bedbugs.com said that bed bugs thrive when people are kept in close proximity and where there is a frequent turnover of people. On aeroplanes, people are in close proximity and are not able to move other than on the plane, and their belongings are required to stay untouched for long periods of time. This is an excellent recipe for bed bug transferal. Oh, blimey. Bed bugs.
That's really horrible.
Of all the things to experience on an aircraft. I mean, you know.
I mean, is that... I mean, I haven't lost the plot here. This isn't normal, is it? I mean, has anybody else come across this particular issue? I mean...
Well, bed bugs have come back since they stopped using DDT to eradicate them. And they're becoming more prevalent now in hotels, and you can see them sort of making their way across North America, at least. Like they're showing up in better places now.
I would have thought, Keith, that the cold would sort of keep those the bed bugs away from.
That's one way that you can kill them. If you discover them, you take your things outside and let them go below zero, and the cold will kill the bed bugs. But of course, they're domestic pets. They live in mattresses, and they bite you while you're sleeping.
That's really.
I'm absolutely horrified. I think if they're on an aircraft, they could get onto your clothes, anybody's clothes, then go to your house
and then suddenly you've got a problem in the fact that you just had a flight home, if you like, and then suddenly when you get back, suddenly your house has got bed bugs. I mean, it's just I don't know. I guess it's a kind of I suppose it's inevitable, isn't it? If, as you say, perfect breeding grounds for them, but I it's not something you think about. I mean,
Marsha's just put in the chat room that she had them once too, and they had to get rid of the whole bed.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
Just throw the whole thing away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just horrible.
And Micah's just put that maybe that we need to pay an extra fee to fly in non-bed bug areas.
No. Let's not give Ryanair any ideas, eh? It's just not going to go forward. Anyway, on to the next story, and
a special story just for Matt.
Yes, absolutely, because for some reason I always end up with the Ryanair stories. But anyway, we mentioned them a moment ago. This is on the Fortune.com website, and this one I chose basically because I've been in charge of the stories this week. Carl's been very busy, so so brace yourself. If they're really terrible, you know who to blame. It's as I say, it's Fortune.com is the website, and the headline is Ryanair CEO says he will plaster his planes with planes. I'll start again. I haven't had a drop, I promise, ladies and gentlemen. Plaster his planes with anti-Brexit slogans. Michael O'Leary, CEO of Ryanair, has built his reputation on his quotability and unapologetic pursuit of cost-cutting, which has made the discount airline one of Europe's most successful. He's especially famous for calling a customer an idiot when he complained about having to pay to print off her boarding passes. It seems the outspoken executive now has a new topic on which to unleash his unmitigated candour, and that is the Brexit. Now, for those of you who don't live in this area, they know basically Britain is voting to whether they're going to leave the Eurozone or not. And basically, Michael O'Leary is not keen on that. Prime Minister David Cameron on Sunday set June the 23rd as the date of the referendum to determine if Britain remains a member of the European Union, and business leaders are starting to disclose their opinions. On Wednesday, O'Leary, an Irishman, said that from now until late June, he would bore everyone to death with his anti-Brexit messages. He strongly favours Britain staying in the EU. He even plans to communicate his stay position by plastering pro-Euro slogans on Ryanair planes. O'Leary's planes employ 3,000 people in the UK and shuttles more than 35 million passengers per year between the UK and Europe. London is a major hub for Ryanair, with 20% of its passengers expected to depart from airports there this year. But if Britain's exit from the EU, known as Brexit, occurs, O'Leary says the airline would invest faster in other European countries such as the Czech Republic and Poland. He said Brexit would not be an Armageddon, but that he did warn the Ryanair flight prices would rise if Britain leaves the bloc. He credited Europe's deregulation for lowering the cost of air travel, which has created cheaper holidays for British citizens. An independent Britain could increase fares, since the airline might have to put up taxes if the economy soars after an exit. Plus, he said, a standalone UK government might foster a bureaucracy that would limit competition and drive up costs. In advocating for Britain to stay in the EU, O'Leary goes up against leaders such as London Mayor Boris Johnson. What a real treat. Who is so far the most notable name to support departing the political bloc. Cameron wants to stay in, and an opt by Johnson. Never mind. I'll forget that bit. Anyway, you get the gist of the story. Basically, O'Leary
can do in it whatever he wants.
Yeah, basically,
they're his planes.
Absolutely.
If he wants to put some kind of advertising slogan or something on it, he'll do it anyway, regardless of what anyone thinks.
I genuinely haven't made my mind up, by the way, yet. I really don't know whether I want to be in or out. My gut feeling says I want to be out.
That's a whole nother discussion here.
Is it? Maybe not one
it
for the show.
It will erupt in the chat room now. Everyone in the chat room.
Oh dear.
They'll
Never mind.
Mad.
Hello, Pip's cheering again. I'm guessing a certain result might be going in our favour again. Yeah.
Something's happened with the golf or something. Oh no,
golf?
Sorry, rugby.
Oh, honestly, you are an embarrassment sometimes. Honestly, I'm so sorry, listeners. I am so sorry.
I'm guessing, Keith, that you haven't had the pleasure of flying on Ryanair.
No, from what I've heard, I'd rather take a ship.
Indeed.
I'm surprised he hasn't covered his airplanes with Walmart and McDonald's advertisements already.
Yes.
I mean, he can draw whatever he likes on them, I suppose.
Well, that's true, absolutely. And his opinion is his own. He's entitled to have it, isn't he? But yes.
We've got an area in Canada that already bores people to death.
Is there? I mean, is there a sort of an equivalent?
What's your low cost
airline
in Canada, Keith?
We don't really have anything that's as blatant as Ryanair. We've got WestJet, which is a high density, low cost carrier, but they're not ultra low cost. They're still competitive, I suppose. And Air Canada, lower cost subsidiary, they call Jazz. That's those are probably the equivalents in Canada, but they're not anywhere near as inexpensive as Ryanair.
No, indeed. As I say, I mean, we cover stories like this every single week, but then it's just a continuous ride. We all still use them because at the end of the day, especially when to go, my auntie lives in Ireland, Wendy, and so when I go to go and see her, you can do it for £70 return, £70 sterling return. So that's incredible.
So moving on to our next story then.
Indeed.
On the Guardian website, this one. And the headline, Canadian consortium buys London City Airport for £2 billion.
Wow. I didn't realise it was up for sale.
No, nor did I. I'd have put an offer in.
Yeah, really?
That would have been a great place to hold the show.
Yeah, I can imagine.
With our own runway.
Yeah.
And we could have Pip, flying in.
Flying in and out, yeah.
Captain Al, coming in every now and again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's somewhere for Keith to land also.
We've got the Thames, which obviously Keith could land on. So that
absolutely. With his skis. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. More about that later.
So London City Airport has been sold to a Canadian consortium for around £2 billion. The airport in the Docklands largely serves a clientele of business executives and has been bought by a consortium led by the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund and Borealis, the pairing whose UK infrastructure investments include HS1. Other reported bidders were the Chinese transport company HNA and another Canadian consortium. And as for the price, the capital's smallest airport had exceeded early expectations. The value of the airport, which serves around 4 million passengers a year, has rocketed over the past 2 decades. Global Infrastructure Partners, its owner until now, also has Gatwick and Edinburgh in its portfolio. It paid a third of that price a decade ago to buy the airport from the Irish businessman Dermot Desmond, who had purchased it in 1995 for just $23.5 million. Oh, is that all? It was an investment that had been considered risky while Canary Wharf, a major source of business passengers, was in administration. The Ontario Teachers and Borealis Consortium also included AIMCO and Wren House, while the defeated Canadian Consortium included PSP Investments, a pension fund that covers the country's mounted police. Expansion plans for the Central London Airport have been blocked by the mayor,
yes.
Boris Johnson, and City Airport is appealing against Johnson's decision to block its proposed £2 million expansion plan, which would have doubled passenger traffic by 2030, extending the terminal and the airfield to allow 50% more flights. Campaigners attempting to curb its present operation due to noise and pollution concerns have warned that the 2030 vision would mean a huge increase in flights and disruption over the inner north-east London. The sale may raise eyebrows for the boss of London City's biggest customer, British Airways. Willie Walsh, chief executive of BA, owner IAG, recently dismissed the £2 billion valuation as foolish, and he warned BA was prepared to move its operations elsewhere should any buyer attempt to increase the landing charges to cover the cost of its purchase. The price is around 30 times London City earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortisation in 2015. Walsh said he could not see how any buyer could recover or make any return on that investment unless they make significant increases to airport charges. These charges they're on about here, that's part of the reason why I think we tend to have lost quite a few airlines from Norwich Airport, our local airport, over the last few years. And I know that we recently lost, I think we lost Air Malta from Norwich Airport. Right. I think they're pulling out, I think this year. And down to the cost
of actually
flying into.
Right.
And the services involved with flying out, and obviously here at London City, the buyers here buying this for $2 billion.
I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of stories actually. You say that it's also expensive for like yourself.
Yeah.
If you have to land in there when you're doing your cross country thing, and also I don't know whether he's joking, but Pip says that apparently SafeJet were trying to buy it for 800 million or something silly.
Really?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe I misread that. Hang on.
That's Pip's piggy bank.
Right, is it? I didn't know whether it was just him being for 800 million a few years back.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Oh, blimey. So it's gone up in value a little bit, I think it's safe to say.
I've never flown from London City Airport.
No, I haven't.
I've flown over it. I've seen it from the sky, but I've never actually landed at London City Airport.
They've got that Emirates Air.
Oh, the
thing.
Air.
I don't know if you've seen that. And I watched something take off, which was quite cool. And if I'd have been more organised about it, I could have videoed it because I had a fantastic view.
So the chat room is filling up even more. We've got quite a lot of people now appearing in the chat room. Hello to everyone who's come in since we started.
Stuart is in.
Stuart Barker is in. Glenn Towler.
Pip says he's not joking.
Pip says he's not joking. No. So hello to all you guys who've joined us in there. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes.
So next story, moving on.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, it is. Stop moving the mouse, and I will.
I've not touched the mouse.
Honestly, it's the only trouble when we share a laptop, ladies and gentlemen. It is on the CoventryTelegraph.net, and this is the headline is Birmingham Airport drama as plane veers off runway. Now, I was desperately trying to get some video of this because I know I'd sort of seen on the news wires some of that, but Birmingham passengers had a lucky escape today after a plane arriving from Germany veered off the runway and ended up on a grassed area. A dramatic picture taken by a traveller on another jet showed the Airbus A320 surrounded by emergency fire and rescue vehicles. And I'll just do that, and then you can sort of see what they're talking about. Yes, there's literally it's completely missed the runway, isn't it? It's
just
on the
slightly.
grass.
Yeah,
absolutely. Quite how that happened, I don't know. I shall talk to the experts about that in a moment. Officials at the airport said the plane, which had just arrived from Paderborn in Germany shortly after 2 p.m. on Sunday, was taxiing when it, for unknown reasons, turned off the runway. A spokesman for the Birmingham airport said that the airport's rescue services rushed to the scene, but there were no reports of any injuries. She said that the incident had not caused any delays for passengers on other flights. Well, no, because it was nowhere near the runway. It was on the grass. The spokesman for Birmingham Airport said Birmingham Airport can confirm that the A320 aircraft belonging to charter company Small Planet was manoeuvred off the taxiway into the grass after landing from Paderborn at 13:20 today. Passengers have safely disembarked and they have been bussed to the terminal. There are no reports of any injuries. The aircraft is currently positioned on a grass area adjacent to the taxiway. The airport's rescue service is in attendance and the runway remains open. Very strange.
I know. I saw this story earlier on the week, and when I saw the pictures online, I was trying to work out who they were. 'Cause, it's one of those airlines that you don't really hear huge amounts about, but Small Planet Airlines, they were founded in 2007, commenced operations in 2008, and their operating bases, they've got quite a lot around Vilnius Airport, Warsaw, Gdansk Airport, and they also use Gatwick Airport as well as one of their operating bases as well.
Okay, cool.
But they are a Lithuanian airline,
okay.
Small Planet, and have a fleet of all Airbus aircraft. They've got 7 A320s, and they've got 21 of Captain Al's favourite aircraft on order, the A321. So
very strange. As I say, it's just very strange why it suddenly veered off. Story is rather lacking in detail, I suppose. But,
I know. Well, perhaps Pip will do a segment on
planes
runway excursions.
You're setting him homework.
Just a video here of somebody else's view, and the picture that you have there is kind of misleading because it's taken over a little hill, but the aircraft's actually, it's just one wheel's come off the edge of the taxiway. It's just the way it's been photographed makes it look like
it looks like it's sort of cracked into the
cross
hedge.
country.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, see, look at this. Yeah, see, much better. What's the local airport to you, Keith?
The Yellowknife Airport. It's a Charlie Yankee Zulu Foxtrot, if you look it up on the ICAO. It's got 2 runways, one's 6,000 feet, one's about 4,000 feet.
Wow. 2 runways. Bigger than Norwich then.
Yeah, just slightly.
Just slightly, yeah.
And cooler.
Yeah, well, minus 32 currently, yes, absolutely.
So next story on the Crawley News site. Headline, Norwegian to fly new large Dreamliner planes on routes from Gatwick Airport. So Norwegian are going to be able to fly more passengers from Gatwick using less fuel to destinations across America when the new larger 787-9 Dreamliner aircraft launches next month. The new low-cost airline, well, they're not that new, they've been going for quite a while, Norwegian, has taken delivery of its first 787-9 Dreamliner, which can take on 53 more people than the existing Dash 8 Dreamliner. And it's going to be used to carry more cargo as well, using 20% less fuel and creating 20% less emissions as well, which is what everyone's more worried about these days.
Yes, saving the planet.
I know. This marks our continued commitment to the company's global expansion, ensuring passengers across the world access to high-quality flights at a low fare, Norwegian's CEO Bjorn Joss said. The Swedish actress Greta Garbo adorns the tail of the aircraft. Its first commercial flight will commence on February the 27th, which is today. Yeah. That's going to fly from Oslo to Orlando in Florida. And from then, the aircraft will operate routes to and from Gatwick. And Matt can just put that picture there on the screen. You'll see that there.
Okay, right. you're testing my skills here.
There
we go. Yes,
there we go. There's the lovely Norwegian. Now these, Matt, for those of you who've got the wonderful Flight Radar 24 app, other apps are available, including Plane Finder.
Right.
We'll know these particular aircraft, the Norwegian aircraft, fly quite a lot over where we live here on the east coast, on their way out up to
from the previous story, by the way, Glenn was just saying that maybe a tyre blew off, maybe a tyre blew on landing. Absolutely,
very, very possible. Yeah,
had a really tricky crosswind landing just prior to that, so that could be malfunction brake or tyre or something.
That's you see. I'm rubbish at this. Why do I do this every week? I have no idea what
we'll fly Keith in next week. He can
absolutely.
Join in the
studio. I'd love to just sit here and press buttons. That would be fine.
Okay. But you can do the next story.
Oh, can I? Right. I'll try. Okay. Right. This is on the Travel Weekly website, and the headline is Heathrow, Gatwick, and Manchester airports against the Brexit. The bosses of Heathrow, Gatwick, and Manchester Airport Group are among about 200 business leaders calling for the UK to stay part of the European Union. This is all in about trying to keep the balance, essentially, because Ryanair beforehand were sort of saying that they were going to pull out. They wanted to remain part of the euro. And yes, other travel sector signatories to a letter to the Times published today include TUI Travel, which I think is what used to be Thomas Cook, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, or Thompson. Yeah. No,
Thompson.
Sorry, yes, yeah. Travel subsidiary board member Peter Long, Ryanair chief executive Michael O'Leary, EasyJet chief executive Carolyn McCall, AirAsia and Tune Group chief executive Tony Fernandez, and LastMinute.com co-founder Martha Lane Fox. They claim the Brexit will put jobs at risk and counter the out-of-EU movement supported by London Mayor Boris Johnson and cabinet members such as Michael Gove. This is obviously very English. The letter says, following the Prime Minister's renegotiation, we believe that Britain is better off staying in a reformed European Union.
There's a lot of EU talk today in the news, isn't there, really?
There is, yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry about that. But it is, as I say, if you live here in the UK, you'll know it's an absolutely massive story here. And the great news is that there's only 4 months to go before we actually have our referendum. So... plenty of time to fully absorb the entire argument.
I'm too excited in the aviation side of things.
Are you? Okay, yes, no, fair enough. Anyway, on that note, let's move straight on to the next story.
So the next story on Travel Weekly, and the headline, EasyJet renews Sabre deal to target business travellers. EasyJet has renewed its deal with GDS Sabre, giving agents in Europe access to airline fares. The airline struck deals with the major GDS specifically to target corporate travellers, and today 20% of its passengers travel for business purposes. Peter Duffy, EasyJet's commercial director, said EasyJet made its inventory available through the GDS in 2007, and it remains of paramount importance to have a key distributor like Sabre accessing our fares, including key products and inclusive fares and corporate negotiated fares. We continue to deliver on strategy that we launched in 2010 to increase our appeal to the business travel sector. Enhancements including allocated seating, inclusive fares and fast-track security have all played a part in enabling EasyJet to attract more business passengers. Harold Eisenacher, Senior Vice President of EMEA Sabre, said that we have collaborated closely with EasyJet over the past 8 years to support their business goals and corporate travel strategy. During the time, Sabre has helped increase sales among corporation travel management companies and travel agencies and expanded EasyJet's reach in new and existing markets where Sabre has entered and grown. We look forward to continuing our close relationship, and EasyJet said the GDS relationship it has established has enabled it to grow its presence in the business travel market and sign a large number of corporate contracts in the past 5 years. That's big business, with these the airlines. We associate Ryanair and EasyJet as carrying predominantly people going on holiday to Europe. But Ryanair and EasyJet, especially EasyJet as well, do have quite a large number of business passengers who are flying purely to Europe for business.
Well, of course, the net sort of gives you this story. I mean, in the same way that obviously that we're chatting to Keith now via FaceTime in this particular case. They give you this impression that people don't need to travel to the other side of the world to do business. But I mean, that's really not true, because you can't. I love technology. I mean, that's why I do what I do. I mean, I love technology. But if you've got to have a business meeting, sometimes there is no alternative for sitting in front, like you and I are now, sitting across a table from each other. You can have an open-ended discussion. You can exchange notes. You can exchange papers and all that kind of thing. I mean, people are always going to fly to, especially in Europe, when you have got people like Ryanair and EasyJet making it cheaper to go to Milan, for example, than it is to get on a train and go to London. I mean, that's the crazy thing.
And like the story says, I bet EasyJet and Ryanair both have. I bet they've got some pretty mega deals with these big corporate companies to make the fares, a bulk buy fare really, really cheap. So, not that it need to have them cheap, but these are big companies. But they obviously have got group deals. Buy one. Get one free.
One, get one free.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Oh dear. Anyway, on to the
next story.
Next story, yes, and this is
what, another one?
I know, this is crazy, isn't it? It's an awful thing, and I'll leave you to take that.
So this story is on the Scotsman, and it's a story that we cover far too often on the show. And again, lasers have been shone at 8 planes landing at Glasgow Airport here in the UK. Police have launched investigations after lasers were shone at 8 aircraft on approach to Glasgow's airport, and this was last weekend. Officers are reported to be keen to be tracing these people involved in the incidents, which most of which took place between 7 and 9 in the evening last Sunday. The incidents came just days after the Virgin Atlantic pilot that was dazzled by a laser during a transatlantic flight to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport had to make a return to London Heathrow. Police believe the majority of the lasers were shone at the aircraft from the Knightswood area of Glasgow. And an 8th laser is believed to have been aimed at the plane from the banks of the River Clyde at around midnight. All the planes targeted landed safely at Glasgow Airport, and a police spokesperson confirmed that officers were investigating the reports. The British Airline Pilots Association, BALPA, claims that lasers can result in temporary loss of vision and visual interference that persists after the source of illumination has been removed, among other issues. In November last year, a pilot sustained an injury to an eye after a military-strength laser was reportedly shot into the cockpit of an aircraft as it approached London's Heathrow Airport. The pilot was left with a burned retina and had to be treated in hospital. After the incident involving the Virgin Atlantic flight, BALPA General Secretary Jim McColson said that this is not an isolated incident. Aircraft are attacked with lasers at an alarming rate and with lasers ever more increasing strength. Modern lasers have the power to blind and certainly to act as a huge distraction and dazzle the pilots during critical phases of flight. So between 2009 and June 2015, nearly 9,000 laser incidents across the UK were reported to the Civil Aviation Authority here in the UK.
I mean, what are your thoughts on this story, Keith? I mean, have you had any experience of this? I mean, I suppose that's one of the advantages about flying sort of perhaps more rural areas.
Yeah, we don't fly over built-up areas very often up here, but I mean, it's certainly an issue in Canada as well, in the more urban areas closer to the border. Yeah. I think anybody that would do that on purpose deserves to be drawn and quartered. Yeah. But I also suspect, though, that a lot of these incidents might be young people that are just playing with their laser. You know, I mean, it's seeing if they can bounce the laser off the belly of the aircraft or see the. You know, I don't know if all these incidents are malicious intent, but certainly it's dangerous.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Makes me angry.
It needs to stop.
As I say, it's just worrying. The only thing that worries me, obviously, is they're covering these stories massively in the news here in the UK, but the incidences as a result of that are almost going up. It's it's perhaps a certain niche of our community here in the UK, perhaps where they're sort of seeing the news stories and being stupid, frankly.
Oh no, it's happening all over North America, especially in the United States. You hear in the American news almost weekly from somebody getting a laser strike, especially over places like Las Vegas and
hello.
I don't know how much of it is deliberate and how much of it is just a young person playing with the laser, but I think they should have a public service campaign or public message campaign. I'd put out some television ads.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't sort of done that, really. I mean, perhaps they were just sort of hoping that covering it heavily in the news, if you like, would work quite well. But then, as you say, the people who are probably doing it are not likely to be watching the 6 o'clock news, for example.
But you know yourself, Matt, in the UK, we've had some fairly graphic commercials regarding road traffic accidents,
motorbikes and
with speeding and stuff in the UK, where these ads have been put out, and they're fairly, they do make you
horrific.
Stop and look, in these adverts, and to do with with these, but they should do something similar.
I guess fortunately so far there has been no major incident as a result. Okay, we've had one that's been turned round. I mean, I just hope they don't wait until something awful happens before they, as you say. I mean, that's a great idea. What Keith was saying, actually, some public information films, and sort of get the images out there. Anyway, on to the penultimate story. Yes, absolutely. Before we move on to a top 10, which I've chosen in honour of last week's episode. By the way, a very good evening to David. He's now in the chat room. We met David on Saturday at the 100th.
Hello, David.
Indeed.
He's also, thawed out now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We all have. Actually, the chat room's going crazy about seat pitches and things. They're talking about Norwegian Airways and stuff, and they're talking about the seat pitch not being very generous. And one of the comments I was reading, actually, if you were a taller person, not great news, I think is the...
and David is a taller person.
He is very much a taller person, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, the story that I was going to move on to, this is a Press and Journal, the Press and Journal. This is a slightly worrying story. So if you have an unpaid speeding fine, you could be arrested at the airport. A pilot who had been cited to appear in court over an unpaid fine but failed to turn up was arrested by police when he was passing through Birmingham Airport. The man from Dunbartonshire owed money for a traffic offence and was arrested after a warrant was issued by Dumbarton Justice for the Peace Court. He was released by police at the airport after paying the £150 fine in full. People with outstanding fines run the risk of embarrassment and disruption to their travel plans by being arrested at the airport. A shoplifter who owed £200 was held in January at Glasgow Airport on a warrant issued by Aberdeen Sheriff and JP Court. The woman settled in full before she was allowed to proceed, and a man who had a £230 fine, unpaid fine for a road traffic offence, paid up in full after being arrested at Aberdeen Airport, returning from a trip to Istanbul. Arresting non-payers as they travel through ports or airports is one of a number of measures available to the Scottish Courts and Tribunals Service for recovering unpaid fines. Other measures include freezing bank accounts, taking money directly from earnings or benefits, and clamping cars. A new report says that released by the SCTS today reveals that the fines collection rate remains consistently strong. Yeah, I'm not surprised. So this is obviously sort of very much focused around sort of Scotland, really. It's I don't know. It's an unusual approach, I suppose.
I know, collaring people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but the fine gets paid, I suppose.
Well, yeah. Before you hop on a plane to
absolutely,
somewhere far, far away.
I suppose you could argue that if you can afford to get on a plane to fly,
you can
somewhere,
afford to pay.
You can afford to pay the fine.
Oh yeah,
but, yes, it's a slightly more aggressive approach than perhaps I would have expected. But there we are. Hey, it's
next thing there'll be fines going out for pilots. Speeding.
Oh, what in the air? How does that even work? You got some policeman with a radar gun trying to actually catch the plane, make sure it's doing the right amount of knots, not breaking the sound barrier or anything like that.
No, that was Concord's job.
Oh, was it?
And that's way gone.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
So our last
Jennifer Parkinson.
Oh, Jenny's in
the
hello in
Jenny.
Rome.
Yes.
Greetings in Rome. There,
is she in Rome or is she here in the UK?
She might be in the UK.
You might be in the UK. Jenny, are you here in Norfolk or are you still away?
She's probably back here in the UK, I reckon.
Is she?
I think she said she was coming back to the UK.
Anyway, in honour of our fantastic outside broadcast last week, we have for you a very special top 10, and it is the world's 10 best and most amazing aviation museums. Since the Wright brothers flew the first aircraft in the world, the aviation sector has witnessed momentous changes over the years. The aviation museums around the world offer a great understanding of the history and also showcase the latest technology regarding the aviation. Here is a list of the top 10 aviation museums in the world. So, in at number 10.
So, at number 10 of the best aviation museums in the world, it's the Pima Air and Space Museum in Arizona. Here you can see the world's smallest biplane and the SR-71 Blackbird, the fastest spy plane. And this museum, which is largely privately funded and established in the best year of all, 1976.
A great year that was.
Great year that was.
Absolutely.
The
all the best people arrived in the world then, yes, absolutely.
Including me and you. The museum spread over an area of 127 acres. And I really want to go there. Right, that's next year's holiday sorted.
Anyway, number 9.
At number 9, it's the Central Air Force Museum.
I'm going to have to bring that
Monino.
picture up. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bring that picture up before you move the mouse. That is an absolutely what on earth is that? Is that like the?
That's a helicopter.
That's
plane.
a heliplane.
Heliplane.
What's one of those?
It makes me laugh. You've got curtains in the front window there, which is quite interesting.
Well, one has to be comfortable during one's flight, obviously.
So the Central Air Force Museum in Monino, it's got 173 aircraft, and it's one of the largest aviation museums in the world, located at Monino Airfield. Museum was established in 1958, although the public were only allowed into the museum from 1999. The chief exhibits include aircraft such as MiGs, Sukhoi planes, Tu-142 bombers, Tu-22 bombers, and a Tu-144 supersonic passenger airplane.
Wow.
Wonderful. I want to go there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, number 8.
So the next one, especially for our guests, this one is the Canada Aviation and Space Museum in Ottawa. The 8th spot on the list of the top 10 museums, and this one, the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum, was established in 1964 at the Ottawa Airport. The museum houses an impressive collection of over 130 aircraft from around the world, and the chief exhibits include a Canadarm, the Canadian-made, a part of the Space Shuttle Endeavour as well, and the vintage bush planes from the 1920s and Canada's military aircraft, which took part in the World Wars as well.
Just going back to the one we were talking about a little while, the one with the curtains in the front there, Glenn Towler was saying it's actually a Russian helicopter. It's the only one that was built, which he's pretty sure of. It's the only one that was ever actually built. I mean, it looks like it is literally a cross between an aeroplane and a...
And Shirtback has said that he thinks it's from a Disney movie.
What you guess, true, yes, absolutely. Yeah, you should have a silly face painted on it. In at number 7.
At number 7, it's the China Aviation Museum in Beijing, boasting more than 200 aircraft across the different models. The China Aviation Museum is the best of its kind in Asia, located near the Xiaotang Hill. It was opened in 1989. An amazing aspect of the museum is that a major part of it is located inside a cave on the side of a hill. The prominent attractions include a replica of the Wright Flyer, former Chinese Premier Mao Zedong's personal aircraft, and a number of World War II aircrafts and Chinese aircraft which are on display as well. So that's another one.
Number 6.
So at number 6, it's the French Air and Space Museum at Le Bourget.
Ooh, get you with your fancy pronunciation.
I am really good. I know. One of the most famous aviation museums in the European mainland, and the museum hosts the only remaining part of the White Bird, the aircraft used by Charles Nungesser, and I hope I pronounced that right.
Probably not.
And Francois Colli, in their unsuccessful attempt to make the first transatlantic flight from Paris to New York in 1927. The museum was opened in 1919 and it hosts around 20,000 exhibits, my God, which include 150 aircraft. Other major displays include 2 Concordes and various gliders, missiles,
I didn't know there was
rockets.
I didn't know there was that many Concordes in the world.
There was.
Yeah.
7 each side.
Really?
The French had 7, and we had 7. Right, there was 14.
Yeah, no sign of the Norwich Aviation Museum yet. Very disappointed to see that. Number 5.
Number 5, it is the Prague Aviation Museum in Kebli.
Now this looks like a museum dedicated to helicopters. That's the.
So the Prague Aviation Museum was established in 1968. The museum, located at Kebli Airport, reflects the rich history of Czech aviation. Kebli was the first Czechoslovak military airfield, which is still used by the military and VIP aircraft. The museum has one of the largest collections of aircraft, numbering nearly 275, of which more than 100 are on display. And the major exhibits are the early Czech aircraft, Soviet aircraft, which served the World Wars. And these included Tu-204, and a Praga E-114, and an Aleutian IL-2.
At number 4.
At number 4, the State Aviation Museum of Ukraine in Kiev. There we go. There's a picture on the screen for those of you in the chat room. Yeah. So located next to the Zhuglani Airport, Ukraine's State Aviation Museum is noted for its display of Soviet technology. It was opened in 2003, coinciding with the centenary of aviation history. It boasts more than 70 aircraft, most of which serve former Soviet Union and later Ukraine. The major attractions are the world's first jet airliner, the Tupolev Tu-104, and the strategic missile carrier, the Tu-22M. Numerous helicopters and naval aircrafts are also displayed here.
Very pleased to see this one. This is in at number 3.
And in at number 3, it's one close to us here in the UK. This one is the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. Opened in 1977, this is the largest aviation museum in Britain, and it was actually a military airfield until 1961. The airfield played a pivotal role during the 2 World Wars, and the museum houses about 200 aircraft and many military vehicles. There are other exhibits like photographs, videos and artifacts that give a glimpse of the history of the wars fought by Britain. There also has a huge American hangar there as well, with lots of American
currently being
aircraft.
refurbished at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, penultimately, this is number 2.
Number 2 is the National Museum of the United States Air Force, Ohio.
Right, now come on, what on earth is that? What is that?
Even I am stuck with what that is. That is
that's weird looking.
Actually, I'm quite.
Do you know? It reminds me of my coach with wings on it.
I think it's a vertical takeoff kind of an airplane.
Wow.
I mean, look at the prop size is huge. The prop diameter is massive.
It's not aerodynamic, is it?
It's not the most aerodynamic aircraft.
It's got a
no.
big sort of like lump at the, honestly.
And it has actually got the NASA symbol on the fuselage there.
Has it? Oh, right.
Yeah, it's
perhaps
NASA,
it's one of those aircrafty type things. You know, those spacey things.
So the National Museum of the United States Air Force, Ohio, situated at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, is the largest and oldest military aviation museum in the world. It was opened in 1923 and is the official museum of the United States Air Force. The museum houses around 360 aircraft and numerous missiles, making it one of the largest collections in the world. There are several presidential aircraft on display, including the one that took JF Kennedy to Dallas on the day of his assassination. Other prominent attractions as well are the B-29 Superfortress that dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki, and more than 1 million people visit the museum every year.
Wow, that's crazy. And finally, in at number 1.
This is definitely one on my bucket list of aviation museums I really, really want to go to. It's the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
Cool.
Visited by approximately 7 million people every year, the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum is the first on this top 10 list of amazing aviation museums. Opened in 1946, it has the largest collection of aircraft in the world. It's located at National Mall, Washington. The first ever airplane, the Wright Flyer, made by the Wright brothers, and the Apollo 11 command module, Columbia, are the major attractions in the museum. The museum also showcases many other aircraft and spacecrafts like the Spirit of St. Louis and Spaceship One. Apart from that, there are around 60,000 exhibits and 14,000 videos and nearly 2 million photographs that shed light on the history of aviation. The museum operates a companion facility named the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center at Dulles Airport, which was opened in 2003. It houses major aircraft like the Space Shuttle Discovery and the Winnie Mae and the bomber Enola Gay, which dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima during World War II.
Cool. So definitely one worth having a look at. Actually, David Corsten in the chat room, he was just saying, just a quick plug for Duxford Museum. It's actually always free on Remembrance Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Which is quite cool.
Didn't know that.
Schuart points out that it's probably still not worth it if you've then got to jump on a plane from where he is, because the ticket, I don't suppose, will be free. But there we are.
And Mila has put that if we ever go over to the Netherlands, that we need to visit the Aviodrome.
Oh, cool.
There we
that
go.
Sounds quite quirky.
So, any of those museums, Keith, you've been to at all?
I've been to the Canadian one, and I've also been to Wright-Patterson. When I was in Air Cadets, we made a trip down to Wright-Patterson.
Cool.
And that best thing that I saw there was the Valkyrie. They've got one of those Valkyrie XB. I don't forget the designation of the XB 60 something. It's one of those huge goose-like. Looks like it's got a big long neck and a really sharp delta wing and 6 F-104 engines.
Wow.
I'll definitely. I just need to go to all these museums.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, when we win the lottery, we'll do it. We'll do a live show from every single one dotted around the entire around the world. We'll visit this top 10 and do all of them. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a very quick break. And watch out in the ad break here, because we do have a very special little segment, which is our 100th behind the scenes from a 100th video episode. So make sure you keep watching for that. We'll be right back after these messages.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com. The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.planetalkinguk.com.
Or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/planetalkinguk, on Twitter via @planetalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Aviation media has long been the domain of the newspapers and magazines. Well, not anymore. I'm Steve Vischer.
And I'm Grant McCarran, and we're bringing aviation right into your radio.
Yes, we're making aviation cool and interesting for everyone.
Hang on, aviation's always been cool. Check this out. How cool is this?
Grant, turn that down. Here at Plane Crazy Down Under, we've got pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, industry leaders, even politicians dropping by to talk to us about the amazing world of aviation right here in Australia and occasionally in New Zealand as well.
Wow, that's cooler than I thought, mate.
Find us at planecrazydownunder.com, on iTunes, or lurking about on other people's podcasts just like this one.
We've got crazy accents and lots of great aviation content.
And we promise not to talk about the cricket.
No, never. Not the cricket. Quack, 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 quack. What is cricket anyhow?
Something we win a lot. Oh, there
Oh!
Well, here we are. It is 5:23 in the morning. I'm up, I'm dressed, I'm more or less ready to get our big show underway. I'm just in the process, obviously, very important job here, making the bacon rolls for a bit later, obviously, because we've got to survive. And there's usually a rule about recording in the morning, we must have breakfast. So as you'll have already seen if you've seen last week's episode, look, there we are, there's the cake, very kindly made by my mum, bless her. So yeah, it's get breakfast done. I've got a couple of bits audio feedback that came in overnight, so I'm just going to quickly sit down and edit those, and then it's time to head off to Carlos's. Hey! Right, well, there we are. That's the last bit of audio feedback. That's the file all sort. Just got it left to send it to Carl now. I don't suppose it'll be up yet. It's now approaching 10 to 6 in the morning, which is unheard of on a Saturday. Ew. But never mind. There we are. I do spare a thought for my colleague. He's actually off to London today while I'm doing this, so he's up about the same time. But anyway, right, time to get ready.
Oh dear, what's the time, Carl? That's really helpful, thanks.
7:29.
Yeah, 7:29. It is 7:30. We're on the very exciting A146. We're heading towards the museum. The guy in the middle here, say hello, Stuart.
Hello, Stuart.
Yeah, right, thanks. And we're now on our way up to Norwich. Say good morning, Carl.
Good morning, Carl.
You're all funny, aren't you? Hurrah! We've arrived, ladies and gentlemen. Should we do this? Let's do it.
We're outside the Vulcan. We're all set up. We've got our outside kit here for doing interviews and stuff later. We'll show you in the Vulcan in just a minute. But yeah, that's it.
Ready?
Bacon rolls eaten.
Yeah.
Tea's on its way.
Yeah. Okay, guys, this is it. We're about to go live across the world on YouTube. I can't believe it's actually working. We're in the middle of a Vulcan, in the middle of nowhere, and it's actually working. But wish us luck, guys. It's time for our 100th episode. Yay!
Can I borrow for the weekend? just for aviation purposes, obviously.
I'll just swing this round. Look, here we go. We've got people being geeks, even after all this. Look, what are you like? Say hello. Wave Wave to the camera, Carl.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
Oh, he's a bit busy.
Hello.
Oh, dear.
Hello, everyone.
Honestly. Dear. That's it. We've got just the tower to come out, and that's it. The Vulcan is no longer our studio. Sad time.
Well, that's it. The show's all over. We're just having our debrief and a cup of tea. And the nicest lady in the world, the nicest lady here at the museum, who's been stuck out in the freezing cold, and I mean the freezing cold all day, making sure that we're left to get on with things, is going to do us the great honour of cutting our cake. So,
thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
And congratulations. And it takes me great pleasure to say 100 episodes.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Woohoo! I hope everybody likes fruitcake. Fantastic.
There we are.
Oh, thank you, my dear. Thank you.
Well done, everyone.
Good. Can I borrow for the weekend? just for aviation purposes, obviously.
And we are back.
Indeed. So it's more or less time then to welcome our guest. We're going to have a little chat now. It's time to welcome Keith. He's refreshed his. Hang on. He's just getting ready. He's just refreshed his beverages. And hello, Keith.
Hi.
Yeah, so you're flying the Twin Otter at the moment. How did you actually sort of come into flying? I mean, is it something you've always been
where did it all start for you, Keith? Where was your kick?
When I was a little boy, my father had me enrolled in Boy Scouts, and when I became a teenager, I didn't really enjoy Boy Scouts very much. We'd moved to another city, and rather than camping and being outdoors, the Scouts were more involved with marching around and saluting each other and pretending to be military people. So I commented to my father that I found it all a bit hard to take, and he asked me if I would be happier in a real military environment, and I foolishly commented that I would later. So he forced me to join Air Cadets, and that involved a lot more marching up and down the square. And can you guys still hear me?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of saluting and marching up and down the square, and then shouting and wearing uniforms. And I didn't really see the point for a long time, but the Canadian Forces has a program where you can enroll in a scholarship competition for pilot training. So I actually won the competition for my squadron, and then wound up getting my private pilot's license. And then, mostly out of laziness, decided to take aviation in college as well, because I felt that I already knew how to do it, and I wasn't correct about that. But, the particular college that I went to had a focus on bush flying, float planes and ski planes. So when I graduated, I got a job flying a Cessna 185 on floats, and it kind of led on from there.
Cool.
So what are the big challenges going for people like me in the UK here who are learning to fly, or people who fly the 150 where you've got the tricycle landing gear as such? What are the big differences going to flying like you do the float planes and ski planes?
Well, the airplanes themselves are quite easy to fly. They're big, they're not a lot different than the Cessnas. Big rectangular wings, and they're designed to fly slowly. I'd say the challenges are environmental. Landing on water requires that you be able to assess from up above whether the water is deep enough and whether the body of water is long enough that you intend to go to, and that there's no underwater obstructions between where you can land and where you intend to go to the shore. And in the winter, the snow, we think of snow as being really puffy and soft, and it is some places, but in the Arctic it's like concrete. You can carve blocks out of it, so you have to be able to find a smooth enough spot, and again be able to tell from above whether it's long enough to land and take off on.
Well, most of the guys here in the chat room in the UK and all around Europe, who we've got in the chat room now, and the US, have probably all seen the Flying Wild Alaska series that has been quite big in the last few years. Is it that intense? Some of the stuff we see on there is, some of the incidents and stuff they get into it. Is it really that intense when you're flying in those conditions?
Occasionally it is, but those shows are all, they've taken the most exciting circumstances they can to create a television show. So I say that 99% of the time it's not terribly frightening. The scenery is always nice, though.
Yeah, we're actually just watching this video you sent us here. This is sort of whereabouts is this where this was shot?
This is very close to the coast of the Arctic Ocean by the Queen Maud Gulf. If you look on a map, it's right at the base of the Arctic archipelago. So I would say probably 68 degrees latitude, maybe. And this is there's an exploration camp where they've been drilling into the rock, looking for minerals, and they've plowed a runway on the surface of the lake right next to the camp.
Wow. It's amazing. We're just watching it as it comes into land. This is
awesome.
It's. I mean, we've all seen runways. We've all seen that shot, haven't we? But it's what frightens me, especially as I say, you're now just coming into land.
Yeah, a lot of the rocks are quite high up.
Absolutely. I mean, it must be a real balancing act to sort of try and get everything. Wow, that is just so cool. So what was that shot from? That was a.
That's from the de Havilland Buffalo. It's a 50,000-pound airplane. We use it to haul heavy equipment.
Cool, that's just so amazing. So what are you usually what sort of, well, not missions? That's perhaps not the right word, but what is is it mainly cargo, or are you sort of ferrying people around? What's the payload usually?
It would be anything that you can fit in the plane. So right. The Buffalo is strictly cargo. We've actually sold those aircraft. We don't. There's the UN is operating them in Africa right now, and we've gotten out of the heavy cargo for the time being, and we've purchased ATR 72s to take over the Buffalo's role. But I don't fly those. So the Twin Otter it carries about 3,000 pounds of cargo or 20 people, and that would be mostly used to service exploration camps and occasionally tourist lodges. There's lots of fishing and hunting lodges in the forest that people pay to come and go fishing, so we'll take them in and out of there. A lot of Norwegians come here to go canoeing, oddly, and we'll carry them in their canoes up to a river in the Barents, and just basically anything that involves travel in the parts of the area.
So what's the weirdest load that you've ever had to carry then?
2,000 pounds of dead wolverines.
Dead
wolverines.
Wow, that's horrible.
Yeah,
that's really weird.
That is definitely really weird. Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, when you did your licenses and things, I mean, what were the steps, if you like, to go from sort of like doing the military and things? I mean, how long does a type rating actually take?
Well, it depends. We started off, I had a commercial pilot's license when I graduated from college, and that entitles one to fly any non-high performance aircraft below 12,500 pounds. So, or to be the co-pilot on, you can be a first officer with a commercial pilot's license. And the ratings that come with that are simply daytime VFR, small airplane, single engine. You can add on a multi-engine rating, an instrument rating, seaplane. Like, you have to collect all these different.
Yeah. Cool.
So we've got some questions coming in the chat room, Keith. We've got a question from Tony S, and he's asked, what extra challenges are there landing on the snow?
More or less being able to judge the consistency of the snow before you land on it. So sometimes, the aircraft has some rather broad skis on its landing gear, so we can land on very soft snow. But one of the interesting things about lakes is south of the tree line, the weight of the snow will actually push the ice down and cause water to come up over top of the ice, and then it remains insulated by the snow so it doesn't freeze. So there'll actually be a layer of snow, a layer of ice, or water on top of the ice, and the aircraft comes along and exposes that layer of water, which freezes instantly. And that can cause a lot of trouble for getting the aircraft out later. So technique that we use is we come in and we put the main gear in the snow, but we don't slow the aircraft down below flying speed. So we just drag the skis through the snow and then take off again. And then we come back and look at our tracks to see if there's water coming up through them.
So are there any big differences between sort of landing on the ice as opposed to like landing on water, as an example?
No, landing on ice, if there's been a strip cleared, landing on ice is no different than landing on pavement. It's not very challenging, really.
We're just sort of playing out here. So what's this aircraft here with the which is landing on the water?
That's a Twin Otter as well. It's the same aircraft in the previous video, but with seaplane floats on it.
Cool. That's just so cool.
So Jenny Parkinson in Rome, Keith, has asked, this may be a silly question, but how do you brake on ice?
No, that's not a silly question. They sometimes the braking action is very poor when the temperature's close to freezing. But the propeller-driven aircraft have reversible pitch propellers. So as soon as the wheels are down, if you pull the thrust levers behind a stop, there's an idle stop, and you pull them back further, the propellers will actually reverse pitch and brake the aircraft aerodynamically.
So we've got a question, Matt, you've got here from
absolutely.
Nick, Captain Nick.
Captain Nick, the legend that is. He says, do you keep your engine running because of the cold, or can you shut down and refuel, etc., as normal?
Sometimes when it's extremely cold, we'll leave one engine running. Some Twin Otters have a system where when we're refueling from drums, we can use the aircraft's bleed air system to pressurize a drum and force the fuel out into the hose. But most of the time, the Twin Otter engine can actually start from cold at 40 degrees below freezing. So
wow, that's crazy.
We don't tend to leave them running.
Wow.
Goodness me! Is it? Tony's saying actually, is it difficult to judge the height with all of, like, basically when you're landing on the ice? I mean, it must be very difficult to work out which are the high bits and things.
With all the white, white coloured surfaces all blending in.
Yeah, we if we're going to a runway, well, not a runway, but a place, a lake or a bare patch in the tundra that we've never been to before, we'll refuse to go there unless the sun is shining on it to create shadows. And from the shadows, you can tell the height of the snowdrifts and the texture of the landing surface. And once we're down, we actually fill bin liners with snow and place them along the sides of where we landed to give us some reference if we come in when the visibility's poor.
My goodness me! As Mila was actually saying, I'd worry about visual tricks of the mind, especially with all that snow. Oh dear.
So are all the runways that you land on, Keith, yourself and that, are they all, specially purpose, cleared runways, or do you have to land somewhere where someone hasn't been in and made it all nice and flat and got everything ready for you?
Yeah, I don't have a picture of one right now, but our Twin Otter aircraft will actually, we can mount larger wheels on it. They're, we call them intermediate flotation wheels, and there's also tundra tires, which are even bigger. And if we can find a patch of ground that's around 1,000 feet long, so 300 meters, that's relatively flat, we can land and stop on it. And of course, with the skis, we don't ever go to any runways with the skis.
No,
we just make our own.
No, God. I mean, you're so used to sort of seeing these various, runways and things with all the lights and stuff, and of course, you don't have any of that.
No.
When
you don't. I'm guessing it's probably you don't have any of the kind of aids that most of the pilots here in the UK have when landing at larger airports, things like ILS and all those sorts of things. That you're totally reliant on what you've got inside. I'm guessing what you've got inside the aircraft yourself.
Yeah, well, our home airport here in Yellowknife has the ILS, and it's got lots of RNAV approaches for GPS. And the Twin Otter is equipped to fly using all those aids. Like it can fly IFR on instruments and land at any of the big airports with the instrument landing systems. But when we're out in the wilderness and flying, making our own landing areas, we only go if the conditions are visual. It's all visual flying.
Gosh,
wow!
I can't even, from someone who knows absolutely nothing about airplanes. I mean, I cannot compute how on earth. Honestly.
So I'm guessing then, Keith, that the heater or the heating system inside the Twin Otter must be fairly good if you're not just for you but also for the passengers as well.
Yeah, actually, actually all turbine-powered airplanes bleed hot air from the compressor section of the engine, so it's just like the heating system on a modern jet. It bleeds off hot air and blows it into the cabin, so we can actually get quite hot in there, even in extremely cold conditions.
So what's the sort of duration then of most of your flights then, Keith? What are the sort of longest durations of flight that you have?
Well, typically around an hour. If you look in the airplane's logbook, the number of hours that it's flown and the numbers of takeoffs and landings that it's done in its life are roughly equivalent. So I'd say that the average flight on a Twin Otter is about an hour, but that's, when we're flying groceries to local diamond mines and things. But I've been on, flights of 1,000, 2,000 miles up to near the North Pole. Been to both coasts on the Twin Otter. We fly it wherever it's needed, but then it's typical. We try to get it within, an hour and a half to 2 hours cruising distance from where it's going to be doing the work, and it makes it economical.
So, Stuart in the chat room is saying again, which again is a brilliant question. It's like, do you have any trouble? Because, presumably weather conditions can change really, really fast. Especially out in, you can go from a really nice day, if you like. All right, obviously you've got the white stuff still about, but the conditions must change so fast. How can you plan for something like that?
Well, we've got a good weather forecasting service in Canada, and most of the pilots have a lot of local knowledge about meteorological phenomena and the things that can happen. We don't typically do a trip unless we've got a plan for what we'll do if the weather gets bad. And on the smaller planes that can't fly on instruments, that plan usually includes landing on a lake, not at your destination, and waiting for the weather to get better. On the Twin Otter, we can just climb up into the weather, and we've got de-icing equipment and instruments and radar and the whole bit, so we don't need to really worry about it.
So for me, Keith, flying in the UK here, in the area that I fly in, well, I obviously haven't in the 150 I fly. I've got no GPS or anything like that. We are obviously training using maps and the whiz wheel and the stuff like that. But for me, when I'm flying around here, it's on a good clear visibility day. I can always pretty much tell where I am because there's lots of stuff like landmarks that I know where I am. I can see this landmark here. I know where that is. But for you out there, I'm guessing that there's not a huge amount of, when you're out in the wilderness, there's not a huge amount of landmarks that you can sort of see. It's all kind of just one white, the snow sort of covered terrain.
Well, we have a lot of lakes, so every lake has a distinct outline that is visible on the map, and so you tend to sort of, if you're using the map to navigate, you'll hop from basically you'll draw a line on the map like you do, but our visual waypoints that we look out for would be a lake of a peculiar shape, or a particularly prominent headland, or a hill or something. And there's lots of features. It takes a little bit of a mental realignment to try to figure out exactly what you're looking at, but you get used to it.
I don't know if I could ever get used to it. It's just absolutely crazy.
But I think if that was me, I'd be forever taking photos all the time I'm flying. It'd be terrible, especially with the sceneries and that you see on the telly when you see these, the pictures and the pictures the videos and that you've sent us obviously as well, Keith, are fantastic. What Matt has been playing out on here. As
well. Just how long have you been flying these routes?
We lived in Yellowknife for 10 years, and I flew in Ontario for 10 years before that, with a brief, spent 1 year flying seaplanes in British Columbia, on the coast.
Goodness me.
But it's all been the same type of flying.
Dan has sent a text in a question, which was, could you ask him what the highlights of his career as a wilderness pilot have been?
Is there any particular day that stands out as one of those
like a wow
day?
Yeah.
Well, 1 year the Canadian Forces operates Twin Otters for search and rescue and light cargo aircraft, and their squadron in Yellowknife was down in aircraft for maintenance, and so they chartered us to accompany them to go to Ellesmere Island, which is the northernmost island in the Arctic. And the Canadian Army was circumnavigating on snowmobiles. They were just basically patrolling the whole coast of Ellesmere Island as a sovereignty exercise, and they required air support. We got to join 440 Squadron and do a lot of the searching for these guys and looking ahead for a route for them and bringing supplies, and that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I bet.
So Mila has got another question for you, Keith. If you land on water, do you have to do a walk round before you take off, or is it, or do you do a swim around?
A swim around, honestly.
No, we do obviously you can't walk all the way around the aircraft, but you can inspect. We can walk on the roof of the aircraft, so we'll climb up and do a walk around from up above. We actually check the engine oil from the top, so there's a ladder up the side of the aircraft, and we'll climb up there and walk around the aircraft on the roof, basically.
Fantastic.
Oh, wow. Any aircraft that you could fly, Keith, if you had a chance to fly any aircraft in the world, regardless of what it is, what would be your aircraft of choice and why?
Does it have to currently exist?
No, it could be an extinct aircraft, anything at all. What would be the one?
Well, this might sound kind of obvious, but I've always been really excited by the space shuttle. If I had a chance and there was a way that this could ever happen, I would love to try landing the space shuttle.
Really?
Wow. We've never had that one before.
No, that
First
is a
time.
new one.
That's definitely a new one.
That is
for
a
us,
new one, yeah. Tony was actually asking, it sounds apologies if it appears like a bit of a stupid question, but do you change like floats to wheels to skis and that sort of thing, or are they just set, one has wheels, one has skis, one has floats? I mean, is it something you can change with the Otters?
Actually, the landing gear is removable. It's made to be easily removable, and the seaplane floats will bolt right onto the same area on the aircraft that the wheels go. So we bring the aircraft into the hangar and lift it up with a crane, and then take the wheels off and bring the floats underneath and attach them. And then there's a special little dolly, a beaching gear, the wheels that attach to the sides of the floats, and then it just trundles down and goes into the lake, and then after it's in the lake, they take the wheels off, and it's in the water for the summer.
Wow. Now, I always ask this question, and I always get told off for doing it by some pilots, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Oh, dear.
Is there a flight that you've had which you'd like to forget? One, I'm not talking about disaster movie sort of style here. Is there a flight that really hasn't gone according to plan, that's been a bit horrible, a flight that you'd like to forget?
I don't know. There was one where, the 2000 Dead Wolverines really didn't smell very good.
No. I can imagine, yes.
But there was one, when I was working in Ontario, I flew a single, de Havilland -3, which is the single engine precursor to the Twin Otter. And we were flying rather late in the winter. We were in the springtime. And I had phoned my boss that morning and told him that I didn't think we should be landing on lakes anymore with the skis, because I thought the ice was getting a little bad. And he said, okay, bring the airplane home at the end of the day's flying. So on the very next flight, when I landed, the aircraft dropped through the ice, and we had to spend the night on the shore waiting for a helicopter to come and rescue us. But we actually managed to get the airplane back because the lake was shallow enough that it wasn't fully submerged. So even larger helicopter came by about 2 weeks later and lifted the whole aircraft out of the lake and took it to the nearest airport. And I didn't like that very much.
No, I can imagine. That's really horrible.
So, Keith, give us a kind of a kind of description of an average day for you.
There's several different kinds of average day, I suppose. In the summertime, while we're flying the seaplane, we have a dedicated seaplane base down in the harbor in Yellowknife, and that's my favorite time of year and my favorite aircraft. So we'll go down there usually an hour or an hour and a half prior to the first flight, and the first officer will make the flight in the computer and check the weather, and we'll brief each other on what the weather's doing for the area that we'll be flying in. And we'll set to work loading and fueling the aircraft. We do that ourselves. We have some ground crew to help.
There's a question from Stuart. He says, they do island hopping with Twin Otters in very sunny places. Have you done anything like that?
No, I've never gone. A lot of my friends have worked in the Maldives. But I've done a little bit of that work with a single otter on the British Columbia coast. In the Gulf Islands in the ocean there, but nothing really noteworthy.
Sounds lovely. The Maldives.
Yeah, I know that is. Yeah. That was where I had my first seaplane flight on.
Was it?
With that? Yeah, on a honeymoon. And I'll tell you, it is it's a totally different experience when you're taking off and landing on water.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. And those guys, when we flew, they were literally, it was that hot. They were flying bare feet. Bare feet on the rudder pedals.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing watching. I tell you, really good.
Okay.
Actually, you should try it sometime. It's with your bare feet on the rudder pedals, you can feel the airplane.
Yeah, I suppose you can, can't you? Because it's
with the crosswind landings we have in this country, Keith. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. We should have more pilots with bare feet. That'd be great. Yeah. So going back to the weather and that you have there, a lot of people perceive it as being that you have this horrendous weather all the time, especially when you're in the wilds.
Well, I can take the camera to the window if you'd like to look out.
It's probably going to be sunny.
Yeah, it's going to be sunny.
Probably going to be hugely sunny outside.
Here we go. Oh, we're off for a bit of a walk. Oh,
I'm looking forward to seeing some snow.
Yeah, absolutely.
We haven't had any.
Yeah, we don't have. Oh
wow!
My
look
goodness
at that.
me!
No,
look at that. We don't ever get snow here in this country. All we ever get is snow. Which is, and our complete our country sort of completely grinds to a halt, which is a tad frustrating. But it is. That is the chat room's going crazy. There is an absolutely stunning view. Wow, from Jonathan.
So, Keith, a question from Tony S in the chat room: is your work all year round, or does it sometimes get too cold in the winter time to fly?
We have a cutoff temperature of minus 45, but we won't send people out into the Barrens if it's colder than that. But and there's times where it's very busy, and there's times where it isn't. In late December, there's not enough daylight to be able to do a full flight. The sun's only up for 4 or 5 hours. And, most of the companies that do exploration work will shut their camps down until March just to take advantage of the better temperatures and daylight in March. But we have a certain basic level of service for the whole year.
And Tony's just put it minus 30. Is that Celsius or Fahrenheit?
No. Oh, Celsius.
Yeah. Goodness me.
Just watching a video then of you on the YouTube feed now.
Seems to have dropped a fish.
Dropped a fish.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'm up on the roof in this picture, and that's my co-pilot who's fishing. He's mad about fishing, and whenever we stop on the lake, he's got his fishing pole out.
I do not blame him at all.
You don't bother with the fishing then, Keith?
Well, I'm not very lucky at fishing. So if I've got a co-pilot like him, I don't need to be good at fishing.
Well, no, that's true. Yeah.
So going back to cruising, do you tend to fly with the same co-pilot all the time, or does it change daily?
We've got about 4 captains and 4 co-pilots at any given time, and there's 3 Twin Otters in the fleet. So any one of us might wind up flying with any other of us, really. But since there's only 8 of us, we know each other fairly well.
Okay,
very cool.
And what are the hour kind of regulations and stuff over in Canada for pilots? What are the limits and stuff for the hours of flying?
They're similar to ICAO limits everywhere. We're not allowed to fly more than 1,200 hours per year. Is an absolute limit for any commercial or airline pilot. There's some exemptions for smaller aircraft, and actually the Twin Otter itself is written into the Canadian air regulations. That there's an exemption there that a Twin Otter pilot can fly up to 140 hours per month instead of 120, which is standard. But you can only do that a certain number of months per year, and it is just meant to take into account the fact that aircraft has seasons where it's very busy and seasons where it's not very busy.
So a question I always ask when we do the interviews of pilots and stuff, Keith, is apart from the job you do, obviously flying that you do you do any kind of recreational flying yourself when on a sort of downtime?
Not really. I have a friend whose father owns a seaplane, and he sometimes talks me into taking him in it to visit his camp if his father's not around to fly it. But I don't really seek out recreational flying. But I fly every day, so I don't feel that I miss it on days off.
No. I think most of the pilots we interview, don't they say that the commercial pilots and stuff, that they don't really do any other kind of hobby flying at all, because the job takes up so much of their time.
Slightly different. I mean, I used to mend computers for a living, but I couldn't think of anything worse, if you like, than people saying, "Oh, what computer games you really into? You mend computers. You must be really into computers." And it's like, no, I've spent my head inside one all day. The last thing I want to do when I come home is play with a computer. So it's, I guess that could apply to pilots as well.
Yeah, that's what I tend to tell my friend when he wants me to fly his airplane. But if I ever stopped flying for a living, I would certainly fly recreationally.
Yeah.
I find flying is actually more exciting when you have a mission. So, rather than hopping in an airplane and just flying around looking out the window, if somebody has something that needs to be taken somewhere, it actually, when there's a goal, flying is more exciting.
So what are the costs, as a matter of interest, in Canada, Keith? What are the kind of costs, do you know, of learning to fly, for your PPL? Because obviously in the UK, as most people know, as probably you know yourself, learning to fly here in the UK is not the cheapest thing to do.
No, I've heard that people will actually come to North America to take flying lessons, and then they'll convert their license, and it winds up being less expensive. But I learned to fly 20 years ago, and that was on a Air Force scholarship, so I don't really have
the numbers. No,
it's to give you an idea, Keith. I don't know what the conversion is in Canadian dollars, but for here, where I'm learning to fly, it works out for a 1 hour lesson dual in the 150 at about 170 quid, or 170 pounds.
Oh, that's about double what it would be here, I would think.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the general theme. It's basically learning to fly here in the UK is ridiculously expensive. They're just busy chatting about your aircraft, actually, in the chat room.
Yeah, actually, Tony's just asked quite a good question, Keith. Do you have a special fuel for the low temperatures?
Yeah, they have the Twin Otter is rated to burn, it can burn a thing called Arctic diesel, which is basically kerosene with some anti-icing additives. But most jet fuel is, I forget what the flash point is, but it'll burn quite happily at -50. But there are certain additives in it to stop ice crystals from forming, which I think airliners have too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as I say, the last thing you need is your fuel to
freeze,
to disappear while you're out in the air. It's Mika was saying that it's a great plane. They're talking about your little Otter. I used to fly one as a passenger from Denver to
Pueblo
along the east side of the Rocky Mountains. It was a wonderful plane.
Yeah, well, it's rugged. Like it's very difficult to damage the aircraft through normal use, and it requires very little maintenance. Requires very little room to take off and land.
Yeah,
it can fly very slowly, so it's actually a very safe airplane.
And they're still making the Twin Otter as well, aren't they, Keith?
They are. There is a company called Viking Air, and they were the original when de Havilland stopped producing the Twin Otter. They took up the production of spare parts, and they eventually were approved to build entirely new Twin Otters. And they call it the Series 400 now, and they're brand new, completely modern. All the cockpit's electronic.
There's a lot of love for the Otter actually in the chat room. It has to be said. But listen, anyway, thank you very much for your time. It's been brilliant. So that's where we're going to wrap the show up today. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Keith. It's been really interesting.
Yes, thanks, Keith. Thank you very much for
it's a pleasure, guys.
taking time out of your day to come and join us and answer all the questions, not just from us, but also from the guys in the chat room. So.
Indeed. So that's where we bring episode number 101 to a close. Don't forget to get in touch with the show. It is our email address is podcast@planetalkinguk.com. The website is www.planetalkinguk.com, and of course you've got Facebook, which is facebook.com/planetalkinguk, and our Twitter handle, last but by no means least, is @planetalkinguk. So
don't forget, to send us your feedback in as well. We'd love to hear your feedback and audio, especially audio feedback as well.
And send that please to podcast@planetalkinguk.com. If you are listening on the podcast and you'd like to see some of the videos that Keith has very kindly shown us, you can watch the show that we've just done, which you're listening to. Sorry, there is a visual version of that. That's available via YouTube. It's www.youtube.com/planetalkinguk. And if you want to ever watch the show live, we always post what time it's going to start. To watch it live, all you have to do is put it into your smart TV, into your device, into your laptop, into whatever it is that you use to get online. That's youtube.com/planetalkinguk/live.
Yes, so me and Matt will be back next week for episode 102.
Very scary. How did we get up that high? up that high.
Up that hay.
Up that hay.
That's a shame. Are we in a field now?
We are indeed. Yes.
I don't know, Matt.
Yeah.
I think it's because we skipped dessert earlier.
I think it is. It's all right. Well, with that in mind, I think it's time to bring the show to a close. So, as I say, thank you very much to all our very loyal listeners. You are the reason why we do this show, and we're eternally grateful for all your input. That's it.
So I'm just looking at the temperature. I've just looked on the Weather Channel.
Yeah.
Don't know how accurate this is, Keith, but just looking at the Weather Channel app on the tablet here in front of me, it's putting you at -26 and fair.
Oh,
good, it's warmed up.
I love it. Yeah, well, as I say, seriously, Keith, there's a lot of love for you in the chat room. Everyone from Mika to Tony to Jenny to Stuart, everyone's saying thank you to you in the chat room. Thank you very much for your time.
Hats off to you, Keith. Well done.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, fellas.
A pleasure. Right, that's it. It's time to say goodbye. So, from all of us here, give us a wave, Keith. Say goodbye. And what's your name? What's your name, Carl? That's it. Yeah, give us a wave. Yeah, we'll go.
Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.
Take care. Have a great rest of the weekend.
And from me and Mum, it's goodbye.
Bye.